like it happens a lot of times, you let your guard down, it's middle of the day, you're tired, you know, it's kind of cold, it was a little windy day, and you know, we were there jammed in our heater body suits, and I remember Ryan saying, there's a buck, and it's him, and it had happened so quick. Damn. I didn't even hesitate. I literally stood up and grabbed my bow as fast as I could. You know, I drew like you're supposed to, and full draw, and instead of him taking those trails that went out in front of us, he turned and walked the trail right to the base of the tree.
You know, people ask me all the time, what's the best place in the world to hunt? And Kansas is always going to be up there. I mean, and it's definitely in my top 3 of the best places to shoot a big deer. And Unit 16, when you think of Kansas, is possibly the best. I mean, at least that area. And, you know, this was my first time to be able to own a piece of property and be able to go after a big buck in Kansas. I'd never got that opportunity. It was a dream of mine, and to put that together, it was incredible to have that chance. You know, when you think of Kansas, I think of all the bucks that I've shot over the years. I mean, you know, obviously, I got Huckleberry. I mean, 240 acres in Kansas. It just is an epitome of Kansas. They're on the river, and it doesn't matter where you're at, it seems like Kansas has got great bucks, but Huckleberry is a perfect example.
Oh my goodness. I've been waiting to get my hands on this buck.
You know, from there I got a buck called Northside. I mean, same river up there in Kansas, right in this same area where these big bucks are. You know, being able to have my own ground up there now and the woolly grass is unbelievable. You know, and it's what I love to do even more, I think, than shooting those big bucks. It's making those properties, whether I own them or lease them, and then being successful. There doesn't get much better than that. You know, going into this year, brand new piece of ground and just seeing what was up, you know, CRP, and anybody that knows Kansas, that's where it's at. You know, that CRP is where them big bucks will lay, and that's why you get a lot of white antlers up there, is because they're laying more out in the sun. And this property I knew was special from the get-go. You know, it had a 238-inch deer shot off of it the year before I bought it on a food plot there. And that'll get you pumped up in itself, just to know that there's those kind of genetics. I couldn't wait to get started up there on the woolly grass. You know, the work starts, I mean, you know, Cole and I up there, hours sweating, chainsaw and whatever it was, getting things right, putting those muddy blinds up, getting stuck, all kinds of things, but that's where we love it. You know, we're moving stealth cameras around, we're doing different things, 16,000-pound feeder that we took up there. A lot went into this property, and we worked, and now it was time to go hunt. Well, as I started in to hunt, you know, I was getting some pictures of some pretty good bucks, but I didn't have that wow buck yet. And so we just continued. I remember the first time I think Cole and I went in, we went into a muddy blind. I put a decoy out, and we looked up right off the bat that morning, and I just seen the look on this buck's face, and I knew that old Joey, our decoy, was probably going to be in trouble. Sure enough, this buck comes up, walks sideways, just like you want him to do, and Joey went flying. You know, as we hunted, you know, more and more bucks would start showing up. The thing that was hurting us, we didn't have a lot of crops around us. You know, we had a real dry year as far as that time of year when people needed to plant in the fall, and we weren't having those big time crops around us. So we were slowly drawing in more deer, and that's what we were doing. We were just checking those cameras, hoping something big would show up.
November 13th, and it's warmed up to 50-some degrees this evening. I wouldn't even be in here if they weren't rutting, because we're in a really good set. This farm has had a history of some big deer this time of year, so that's what we're waiting on, these big deer. Don't move. Right here. Not a shooter, I don't think.
Well, sure enough, we finally get a good one. I mean, definitely a 170 plus type deer. The problem is I looked at him and I was talking myself into shooting him, but the truth of the matter is I was looking at him and I thought this deer is probably not over 4. But again, I didn't have myself talked out of not shooting him. I had myself talked into at least going in and trying to hunt him, and let's look at him on the hoof.
There's been lots of deer coming through here. We're just after this one deer, and yesterday morning we got a picture of him over on this scrape, and this morning about 5:30, about a half a mile from here, he was right down there. So he was actually right where we were at last night.
We were pretty close, hot on his trail, I believe, and then it was time to head to Colorado with Jaylee. As we're heading to Colorado, my cell cameras are sending us pictures, and sure enough, we start getting pictures of Spiderman in the daylight, and if we'd just stayed, we'd have been on him for sure, but my duty called to be a dad, and that was okay with me. Well, one thing had happened, we had got a new lease totally, you know, the woolly grass way out here, we had another lease way over here down southeastern Kansas that Daniel was going to be on, him and Paul. And we'd had some cameras out there that wasn't getting a lot, and all of a sudden a big deer showed up, and he was a whopper.
Well, you know, Kansas has always been one of my favorite places to hunt. You know, we've been blessed and lucky enough to hunt all across the state, you know, but the one place I've never really been able to hunt was southeast Kansas. And, you know, this particular piece of ground was an 80 acres with about a 4-acre patch of timber in the corner. And this particular year it was beans, and so we were hoping it would be good early. Actually, me and Cole and Jeff had went up, and we had a ladder stand and a lock on already there, and I'll never forget pulling that cart and sitting down in the motel and going through it, and just to get a glimpse of this deer that we ended up naming Venom in Velvet. In the daylight, the pictures on those stealth cams were just, they were absolutely spectacular, you know, to see a mainframe deer that big. You know, and I really felt after seeing them pictures and all the daylight that we did have that Paul was going to be able to get on this deer, and Paul was actually lucky enough to shoot another great deer, which he thought was Venom at the time. You know, he got kind of snuck up on behind and got shocked a little bit and was able to just shoot quick, and it ended up not being Venom.
Thank you, Daniel. That ain't him, is it? That's a good deer, though. Big old 10-pointer. I'm real happy with this deer.
That's where Venom actually got his name. We kind of joked and said he was kind of like Poison. You know, Paul had shot the wrong deer, and us going in, you know, we nicknamed him Venom. And I didn't know at the time, but that name Venom was actually going to come back to haunt me. I'm getting pretty anxious. Today's November 5th, and we hung a stand yesterday over there on the little piece of ground where we have VENOM, and was planning on hunting it this morning, but the wind was 2 miles an hour, and as anybody knows, that's pretty light and variable. Well, that first night in, we waited. I was actually there a couple days, and you can kind of tell when you watch those fronts and you watch those pressure drops or pressure rises. For us, it was a high pressure day. We had the perfect wind. I knew that was one of our best opportunities, and a lot of times your first time in is one of the best. The evening progressed pretty slow. We didn't see very many deer. It was getting close to light, like a lot of times happens. Actually, Ryan was filming. He spotted the deer. He actually came from the opposite way, popped out right behind us. He was with a doe, and the doe kind of walked in and walked the corner, and a lot of times they were cutting, they were going from us to the corn. There was actually cut corn over there, and they didn't really want to be in our beans. We could hear, it was actually raccoons walking through the woods, and I'm pretty sure that's kind of what spooked her a little bit, because it wasn't our wind or what it was, but she spooked a little bit and snorted and kind of trotted off over there. He stood there for a while and then decided to turn and walk, and when he did, I knew it was kind of now or never for me.
I know how far he was. He was at 40 yards. I had to pin on 40. So I don't know what happened. Just missed him, I guess.
This particular property, we knew there wasn't much to hunt, and it was really difficult to get in. So we had actually, me and Ryan had slipped in during the middle of the day on one of them windy days and hung a stand in the only patch of timber we had. The way our property was, the big bean field was there. There was about a 3 or 4 acre patch of timber along the creek, and there was a bean field in the back. It was basically a transition in the funnel area. It was a perfect spot. And well, we knew that we had to get that stand in there to be able to hunt it in a couple days. And after I'd seen where VENOM had come out again, I knew that I was going to have to get in that timber. That was the only way we were going to be able to hunt that morning and be able to get on that deer again. So the next morning, we decided to go really, really early. What we were going to do was actually jump in the creek. We were going to walk that creek ditch all the way around, and we were able to slip all the way back in that timber and crawl in that stand that morning. I was going to sit there all day because I didn't want to come out and spook all the deer. Well, the morning was fairly slow for us. We saw a few deer, but not much.
We're still after VENOM. We got northeast winds. And if they're in the same spot today, they're in trouble.
Like it happens, a lot of times you let your guard down. It's middle of the day, you're tired, it's kind of cold. It was a little windy day, and we were there jammed in our heater body suits, and I remember Ryan saying, there's a buck, and it's him, and it had happened so quick.
Damn.
I didn't even hesitate. I literally stood up and grabbed my bow as fast as I could, and as I was turning, he was already rounding the point within 40 yards coming right at us. Instead of him taking those trails that went out in front of us, he turned and walked the trail right to the base of the tree. I was at full draw, not buried in my peep. He's right underneath me, and as I turned, I must have bumped that safety rope or safety harness there where the tether's hooked to the tree. I must have touched my release with it and the bow went off. At the time, I didn't know what happened. It kind of shocked me a little bit, and he trotted off.
I really don't even know what to say. Do you believe it? Like I said, I don't know if I hit my... I knew you were in a bind. Like I could tell you was in a bad bind. Well, I couldn't turn my feet because he didn't give enough time. Yeah. But I was... I don't know if I hit my rope. You know what I mean? If it was caught there and I didn't notice it, it just... Yeah. Like when I pulled back, if that's what it did, I could just tell. I wasn't watching you, but I could tell. It may have been your rope.
Things happen. I mean, no matter what you're doing, no matter what we do, we hunt whitetail deer for a living, and I can promise you there's not a time that goes out that I don't learn something. And I had played everything right. I put myself in the perfect situation the first day and the perfect situation on that morning or that midday, and I just wasn't able to capitalize for whatever reason. We were able to actually catch a glimpse of him later that evening out in the bean field, and I kind of took it personal and went after him a little hard, and I hunted I think 7 or 8 more days, all day sets, and was never able actually to lay eyes on him. He disappeared from trail cameras. The stealth did not have a picture of him. From about 5 days after I missed him, he disappeared, and we never saw him again. And then he come back on trail camera about December 18th, and December 19th he lost his horns. Well, that's just what happens in the whitetail woods sometimes. You get a humble tag sandwich.
Well, all I can say, Daniel, is keep your head up. I mean, just to be able to get on this buck a couple times is unbelievable. And you know what? Things happen. You know, I think sometimes it's easy for us to sit out here and watch somebody screw up on TV or whatever it is. And just because we hunt on television doesn't make it any different. And you know what? Hats off to Daniel. Just an overall great hunt that we hope never happens to us, but probably will. And if it does, and you have a big buck like that under you, what a story. What a story. Well, hey guys, welcome to this week's Walk by Faith. And today I want to open up to the Gospel of John on chapter 15, verse 2. It says, "Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit." And basically, just to break this verse down, it's basically talking about people that are claiming to be Christians and they don't have any fruit. And it's showing that they're not truly converted. So God is taking them at that time and he's throwing them away and basically throwing them into the fire, to hell. And then it goes on to say those that truly believe and truly have Christ living inside of them, that he's pruning us. He's chastising us, making us better. And then it makes us become and have more fruit. And it's all about Christ, and that's what we need to remember. So make sure and study that out. Guys, I'm Jeff Danker, and remember, as we always say, shoot by sight, walk by faith.